Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Hello and welcome to the big match preview here at Across the Park podcast with myself, Ian Mills. I'm delighted to be joined. I think this is probably a little bit of an exclusive, one of the first ever Everton Luton Town YouTube shows, and I really hope that we do the same again next year. Delighted to be joined by Kevin Harper from the Luton Town Supporters Trust. Kevin, thanks for joining Across the Park podcast. How are you?
Yeah, more than welcome, Ian. I'm all good, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Just been speaking off air. I was a little bit late. Just telling Kevin, proper Everton. But it's great to have you on. Like I said off there, that we do these shows with away fans, and you feel free to ask me some questions, have a little bit of banter along the way, and we'll have a nice show, okay?
Yeah, no problem, mate. I've plenty of banter. I've had enough of that in this division already.
Look, I before we get to this division and this year, I want to get to a little bit of the background story in relation to last season. I always say on this podcast that we do with different fans is that you're probably the same. You look at other clubs and you don't know the full story. You just look at what TalkSport or Sky or BBC, just what they tell you. So it's great to get someone on and talk a little bit about the emotive side and what it was like from the outside. When I seen it was Luton in the playoffs, I was a little bit like, how is it Luton? Was it a little bit the same for you, or were you last season? It must have been a great journey, but were you expecting such a great season last year?
I don't know if I was expecting a season as good as what we had, but we were in the playoffs the season before. So the fact that we were in the playoffs, that wasn't necessarily a surprise. But there was a time sort of going into March where actually I thought we could have chased Sheffield United down. I thought they were just wobbling and we were really picking up speed. Then that international break came and they obviously recovered and things. But yeah, the journey last season was just crazy. I mean, we lost the manager halfway through it. Obviously, everyone in Premier League knows Nathan went to Southampton. Everyone thought then, there's the crossroads. Is it Nathan that's got us to where we are, or is it the players that have got us to where we are? Obviously, Rob came in, picked up where we left off. And luckily, he came in during the World Cup. Another unique thing to last season. And we haven't really looked back. And the playoffs itself, I mean, Luton and playoffs do not go together at all. Luton and penalties don't go together at all. So for the two to unite in the playoff final was just incredible, really. So that is where the surprising bit did come.
I remember watching it, and this is no disrespect to any other teams, and I really mean this. You sort of root for the underdog, and I think the entire country was sort of rooting for Luton to be the team to come up, because it's a club that hadn't been in the Premier League, and it's the club with that famous grounds where the away end seems to be in someone's, and everyone was sort of behind that story. I remember really being excited when you won and you came up, and I'm thinking, are Luton gonna invest now? Are Luton gonna buy some really good players and go for it? From the outside, it seems like as a football club, you're not quite ready for that spend. I know there's things coming, new stadiums and things. So it seems to me, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful here, so tell me if I am. It seems from the outside that as a club, you weren't quite ready to come into the Premier League. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the intention was, I mean, we've been quite happy pottering around in the Championship. You just mentioned got a new stadium on the horizon, which has been delayed. Brexit, COVID and everything else. Otherwise, we might already have been in there, in which case we would have been ready. But Kenilworth Road wasn't fit for purpose, so we obviously had to delay our first home game. Spent something like 13 million quid just to get that up to speed. So that immediately is taken away sort of 10% of what you get from the Premier League anyway. And also where this club was, not necessarily last season, but 10 years ago when we were in the conference, 15 years ago when we were literally on the edge of going out of business, like some of the clubs that have done since then. They're not going to let us get into that situation again. We have fans who own us, and they just won't let it get into that situation again. We've signed a number of players that we think will be competitive in this league. That's not to say that we'll stay up or anything like that, but we'll give it a good go. And if we don't, then we'll be in a position whereby we come back again. But we were never going to go out and spend your 20, 25 million pounds on a player. We're just not there yet. We would have to be in the new stadium before that happens.
The difficulty is, and I think you as a fan base will come to this crossroads this season, is we're a little bit the same in relation to a lot of our expectations have been lowered, that we just want to stay in the league and we just want to compete. But there's only so many losses that you can, as a football fan, you can take and register before you do start to wonder, like, is the grass greener? Should we change? I know you don't speak for all the Luton fans, but from your own personal opinion, do you think the fans are willing to maybe give the manager, Rob Edwards, who's a good coach, the entire season, even if, Luton's results do become a little bit, very negative, shall we say?
Yeah, I think so, because as I say, we're ahead of schedule anyway, and that's down to Rob largely. Luton fans and Rob Edwards, they took to each other immediately, which is kind of incredible, really, when you think he was with our rivals at the start of last season.
Of course, yeah.
There was that kind of issue, but no, the way Rob gets his teams to play, the way he's brought into everything, he'll definitely get the entire season. If we do go down, he'll be the man to take us back up again. He's just shown that he can do that in half a season. So if he's got a whole season, he'll do that. And also, I mean, in the Championship, Luton lost 7-0 at Brentford. They lost 7-0 at Fulham. There isn't really anything in this league that Luton fans haven't seen before. If we take a hiding like Sheffield United did at the weekend, we've seen it all before. But I just go back to that end outcome is whatever happens this season will be a Championship football club at worst. 10 years ago, we were all in the conference just dreaming of being a Championship football club. So in many ways, from a fan, this is enjoy the season. This is a free hit. Obviously, it's not the case for the players. They've obviously dreamed their whole lives of playing in the Premier League. That's it. That's their sort of motivation and things. But as fans, we know how difficult it is. We know how out of our depth we are and how we should be beaten every week. But hey, that'll only make the good results even sweeter.
Yeah, of course. And just the journey itself, you're talking there that maybe a decade ago things were looking really bleak and possibly it could have got worse. To have that journey over the last, 8, 9, 10 years, what's it been like as a football fan to be that low, to now get to this high?
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, when they say that you've got to go through the lows and to make the highs sweeter, it's definitely the case. I mean, 10 years ago, the only chance we had of watching football on Merseyside was at Southport. We actually started, started the first game of the conference title winning season at Southport. And from there, it's just been up and up and up and up. And it's been done without spending big. So we're kind of, what we're doing this season is basically what we've done all the way through the leagues. But the one thing that this club does do is just so together. It works so bloody hard. And come what may, they'll give absolutely everything. We might get relegated on a lack of quality, but we're not going to get relegated on a lack of effort or a lack of heart or a lack of spirit or anything like that. And if that happens to take us to 17th, well, happy days. If not, as I say, the journey we've been on, it's only sort of like a hurdle in the ground, really. We certainly wouldn't go down and keep on falling down. That's the one thing they're not going to allow to happen.
If there's not one thing, what would you say is one of the biggest reasons that you've had such success? Because you've mentioned there the spend. Now again, I'm not in the weeds with Luton, and I don't know the ins and outs, but I'm looking from afar. There's less than 20 million spent on having to go in the Premier League this season. There's not big money spent each time that you've came up. There's a reasonable amount here and there. So what's been one of the big reasons behind the success? Is it just a really good structure at the football club?
Yeah, exactly that. Fans own the club, so everyone who comes in through the door has sort of given chapter and verse on what the club means to them, to us as fans. They all buy into it. They sign as much on character as they do on footballing ability. I mean, obviously, you still got to put the ball in the back of the net and do your thing on the pitch, but you have to buy into a team ethic, a work rate. We understand that, particularly in the Premier League, the football's not going to be our friend very often. When we get it, we've got to do the maximum that we can with it. And everyone just buys into that. It's that spirit. It's the supporters that own the club, the supporters that follow the club, to the players, to the staff. Everyone as one just gets the whole picture. And there's a transparency from top to bottom as well.
Yeah, fair.
There's no sort of hiding away or anything. Everyone knows. The people at the top tell us how it is, and we buy into that. And when Rob Edwards comes from our rivals, and anyone's got any doubts or anything, the hierarchy just come out and explain exactly why it was he was hired. He's the best coach for the job. Basically, we are running out of not ex-Watford managers that we can appoint anyway, aren't we? Really, there's enough of them.
Plenty out there, yeah.
But from top to bottom, everyone's sort of transparent, and it's just a club that it's a family, and that's what gets us as far as it does. That team spirit, it really has carried us a long, long way.
When you came up, and you've been really honest in relation to the expectations of probably a large part of the fan base are that you're going to be down there, you're going to be fighting, finishing 17th, I imagine would be a good season. Who are the clubs around you that you're looking at that maybe you can pull down there, keep down there, and then possibly leap?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I thought we would finish above Sheffield United the way that last season was going. Obviously, if we're going to have any chance of finishing 17th, we've got to finish above those. I can't see them finishing any higher than 17th. Burnley, I mean, they've not started particularly well.
Yeah, surprised them really, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, they were in our division last season. We took a point and only lost to a penalty at home against them. So I don't think there's much between them. We played Wolves last week, who I thought were absolutely terrible. And it was annoying that we only drew 1-1 in that game.
I bet it was, so
I'd say those three are the sort of main three. And then you've kind of got three more that I'll be unpopular here. Everton, given that
you are more than accurate, trust me.
Yeah, you only stayed up late last season, which kind of makes me wonder if you're one. Bournemouth would be another one, perhaps. And then there's always one, isn't there, like Leicester last season that just drops in there, and I don't know who it might be this season. Of Brentford, perhaps. They don't seem to be going great guns. But yeah, those sorts of sides, they're the ones that we're targeting, really.
Yes, so we'll move on to the big game at the weekend. Just before we do, there's a player that maybe links the two clubs together. You've signed Ross Barkley. Now, just to give you the background on Ross at Everton, he broke through and he was raw and he was talented. And yes, he could win games for Everton, but he could also lose games for Everton because he was so raw. He never seemed to graduate beyond that rawness. Even when he was in his fourth season, he still had that. And he was always a little bit of a gamble on the pitch. He seems to have gone a little bit off the boil. His career's going a little bit maybe one way. I think Luton's probably maybe his last chance really to end his career well. How are the fans seeing the signing of Ross Barkley? Are you excited by that, or is there a little bit of caution?
Yeah, no, me personally, I am. I don't see it as anything to lose really. Ross, if we can get the best out of Ross Barkley, it might keep us in the division. If we can't get the best out of him, the chances are whoever would have played instead of him, we're going to struggle to keep us in the division anyway. So I think it's a risk worth taking. We signed him on a free transfer, so it's not like he's come for millions of pounds. It's not like he's got that transfer tag around him. And the one thing with all of our signings, actually, you either have to be young that we can coach and improve. Obviously, Ross isn't that. Or you have to have a point to prove. You have to be hungry. You have to, show someone that you do belong in at this level. He's definitely got that on his side, hasn't he? Chelsea, he proved to them, you guys as well, perhaps. So from that point of view, I'm fine with it. I mean, the best of Ross Barkley was an England midfielder, wasn't he? So if you get anywhere close to that, that's more than good enough for a Luton Town midfield.
I think with Ross, what you will have to do is you'll have to, and I don't know how this would fit in with your ethos. He's not someone who will go to war for you, but he is someone who will win a game for you. There's moments where his brilliance will come out, and whether that be a pass that no one else can see or a goal that no one else can score. But I do think that you are going to have moments where the highs and the lows with Ross. Is he fit enough to start on Saturday, do you think, Ross?
Not sure if he's fit enough to start, but my understanding is that he'll be in the squad. So it might actually be that a lot of his sort of impact is off the bench anyway, like you say. If we need the players to go to war for us for sort of 60 minutes, then you're in the game, and then on comes Ross Barkley to win you the game. Initially, that might be how he goes, rather than sort of starting for 90 minutes, particularly away from home. I would imagine we're going to set up quite defensive in away games this season. Otherwise, we might take a few hidings that we don't need to take. Again, he'd probably be better off the bench for these days, the last half an hour lasts about 45 minutes anyway, doesn't it? So plenty of time to impact the game.
Mate, I'm not going to lie. If we're drawing and there's 25 left and he comes on, mate, it's the most Everton thing ever is that he puts one in the top corner. He is that sort of player, and that's the most Everton thing ever as well. So, look, we'll move into Saturday. I've watched an awful lot of Luton this season, not so much last, but when I've tried to look back a little bit ahead of this show and done a bit of research, you seem to still be playing the same way. When I watch you on the naked eye, it's like one of your wingers or wing back goes forward, the other one's a bit more disciplined, and you've got a certain style. Do you think you'll maintain that style that you played last season throughout this?
No, I'm not sure we will. I think the longer this season goes on, the more we'll understand that when you've got the ball, you've got to protect it, because you're doing an awful lot of running around if you keep on giving the ball away all the time. However, I do think our threat is the two strikers up front. Morris, It probably won't be Adebayo on Saturday. It'll probably be Brown. But either way, it's a physical threat up front. And that, I guess, would bring Barkley into the game more. He could feed off of the second balls that come in that direction. So I would imagine there'll be a directness to us. But, I think certainly away from home, I think we'll look a lot more on the counter-attack this season. So, you're right. The wing-backs, one will go, one will sit. There's a lot of pace in the side this season. That is the one thing we did recruit. So, I would imagine we're going to sit back and try and hit Everton on the break, which would make sense because obviously it's going to be, I suspect, a pretty physical game.
It will be, and just to give you a little bit of joy going into it, and Luton fans who are watching this, the two home games that we've lost this season, I mean, you write the Arsenal one off because they are a level above. The two games against Wolves and Fulham, we lost those by having lots of the ball and then being hit on the break quickly. And there was one goal in it. And I probably say that there's not going to be a flurry of goals in this game. I think it will be quite tight. What's the mood of the Luton fans coming to Goodison? Do you think a lot of Luton fans are seeing this as a game that Luton can go and win, and maybe should go and win?
Certainly a game that we think that we can win in relation to some of the other games. We had this run. I mean, it started with Fulham a couple of weeks ago, then Wolves, Everton, and then we got Burnley on Tuesday night. So they were kind of 4 games that you looked at it and you thought, well, if we're going to do anything in this league this season, we've got to take 6 points or whatever from those games. Yeah. We've got 1 from 2 so far. So really we need to be looking at winning on Saturday. A draw is not necessarily a bad result. It's not like Everton have pulled away from us. I must admit, I'd have preferred this game to have been last Saturday. Seemed to have picked up a little bit of form since then, whereas we might have caught you a bit cold last Saturday. But as I said before, the pressure's all on the teams that we play. It's not on us. And we just got to feed on that, really.
I always ask every opposition fan who comes on as we close the show 2 questions. The first being, from an Everton point of view, how do Everton beat Luton? Where are the areas that you're quite concerned about that Everton can do damage to Luton?
Everton beat Luton if you've got any pacing behind. So having watched Everton recently, Beto would probably be a big threat. We do defend with relatively high line, albeit might be slightly deeper in this game, given that we're on the road. And that's the one area that if you've got pace, we haven't got a fast centre-half. So if you've got any pace that can go forward, or even a midfielder who can run beyond, that's how you'll get joy against us.
And the flip side of that question is what are your strengths? Where are the dangers? If Luton can come to Goodison and win on Saturday, how will they do it?
We will exploit your fullbacks. Our fullbacks are very good going forward. Not necessarily so good defensively, but we've got enough defensive players in the side to cope with that. So I think all Luton fans are kind of hoping that Ashley Young plays, because we've got a fast left winger who had the Wolves right back on toast last weekend. So we kind of think that we could get Ashley Young. Yes, he's clever, but if we can get him in a foot race, we'll think we'll beat him. And then crosses, just get the ball into the box. Yes, I know you're good with your sort of centre-backs, but that's how we're going to try and do it. Get him around the sides, and hopefully the ball falls on Morris's head and in the back of the net.
Hopefully not, mate. Hopefully not. Okay, quick prediction before we do let you go, because I really appreciate your time coming on the podcast this evening. I'll go first. From an Everton point of view, again, I really don't want to disrespect anybody, but there were a couple of clubs last season, one who went down, being Southampton, who came to Goodison and won. We can't let that happen. I don't think Everton lose the game on Saturday. I do think Everton do win the game. I don't think it's going to be, really convincing. I think it'll be tight. I think Luton will be in the game. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Everton. What would you give your prediction, Kev?
There's a Luton win coming, Ian. I don't know if it's Saturday. I wouldn't like to say it's absolutely definitely Saturday, but our performances are going up and up and up and up. They're getting better and better. Given the fact that we've just drawn a game, maybe this is the one that we can win. And it might be that it does come away from home, actually, where there's less pressure on us. I think you lose home games 1-0, don't you? And we
do, unfortunately, yeah.
In the Championship last season, we won an awful lot of away games 1-0. It was really our strength. It was almost like that 1-0 to the Arsenal last season for us. So that's got to be the score, really. 1-0 to Luton, 0-0 sort of 65-70. Then your worst nightmare strikes, and Ross Barkley returns home with a bang.
You know the script, Kev. You know it oh so well. You've only been here 2 minutes, and you know exactly what's going to happen to Everton. It's been great to get you on, Kev. I was looking at your socials at the Luton Town Supporters Trust. What we will do in this description is we'll hashtag you, we'll hashtag Luton Town. So anyone who's just catching on to your channel and your page, what are you about and what's coming up?
Yeah, so the Supporters Trust are actually a shareholding in the football club. So we have a little bit of a shareholding. We also have all the image rights and everything like that. So we basically protect all of the things that rogue owners, which we haven't got, thankfully, but we might have down the line, kind of want their hands on. We've got that. So, yeah, that's pretty much where we're at, making sure that we are close to our owners and having the protection of our football club in the future. As I've mentioned throughout this podcast, the future is very much everything for us as a club. The now's great, but we've got to make sure there's a future, and that's what the trust is all about.
No, mate, that's really great to hear. A number of clubs that have been in trouble where probably one, we'd look at that model and go, if we could make that work, that would be the model. It sounds like you guys are making it work. So I wish you nothing but the best in the future, Kev, for you and the trust and the football club. I can't say that I wish you all the best this Saturday. I would be lying, but I really hope that we can do this again in the second half of the season and again next season if you're up for it.
Yeah, if we can get to do it next season, I'll be more than happy to come on. Absolutely no problem with that. Good to chat to you. All the best. Not Saturday, but beyond there. Yeah, hope you go well.
Top man, Kev. Thanks very much for coming on across the park. If anybody does want to catch over to the Luton hashtag, it is the at Luton Town ST on Twitter. Any Blues who are just finding us across the park podcast, first of all, please like it, please share it, please subscribe. We've got plenty coming up on the channel. And as always, up the toffees.